I have too many cars and motorcycles and other vehicles. I have that car, that bike, this bicycle, this car, and this car, these skateboards. The past 2 months of videos, I haven't been really around this area, so here's just a little bit of an update of where I am and what vehicles are getting worked on, what we're going to be doing. And that might sound a little bit boring, but don't worry. I'm going to try and keep it interesting. And we'll also be starting every single one of the vehicles out here if they start. I think they all should, but we'll see. Let's start with this 2004 Ford Crown Victoria. I had this for quite a while. We've taken it on, I think, 2 gamblers down in Oregon now, and it's treated me really well until it didn't on the last trip. You definitely should go watch those videos. And there are also videos where I try and diagnose it, but essentially I diagnosed a few things, fixed a few things, and none of it worked. So now I'm going to get the professionals involved and take it to a transmission shop and see if they can figure out why it won't shift out of second gear. I think it's a wiring issue, but I can't track it down. For the sake of this video, let's see if it'll start. We didn't even get any power. This thing's deader than a doornail. I'm gonna have to jump it this week to drive it down to the shop. Yeah, we're getting the professionals involved here. This thing should be back on the road within a few weeks now, as long as nothing's catastrophically wrong. All right, so next we've got my old as heck utility trailer. Bet you thought I was gonna talk about the Volvo, didn't you? I picked this thing up for about 500 bucks and it just treated me very well. The Volvo pulls it like it's not even there. I do have big plans for this trailer that's not just a utility trailer though. I want to build a camper shell that kind of goes on top of it like a truck camper and has a little living quarters. I want to try the work from home on the road life. We'll see if I get around to that this winter. Next up is my 2007 Volvo XC70. This thing is a beast. I've lifted it 2 inches on 3D printed lift parts and so far so good. They're still in there. It's still lifted. It's got some BF Goodrich KO2s that have performed very well. It does have 2 large issues. The smaller of which is the sunroof. It just doesn't work. The larger of which is a massive power steering fluid leak. I think we went through about 3 to 4 quarts of power steering fluid on that road trip, so that's about a quart every 1,000 miles. Not great. This should be a little more interesting than when I turn the key on the Crown Vic, because I am certain that this is going to start, and now that I've said that, it probably won't. Can't really hear it from just a cold start, but this car has a 5-cylinder turbo, which is pretty much the whole reason I bought this car, and it just doesn't really have any issues in that department at least. So there's a question I want to ask at the end of this video, and this car is relevant to it, so I'm going to pose it now. Which of the cars in this video do you think I should outsource the labor on? I have too much stuff to do on my own. The next car on the block is the Loyale. That's going to get fixed next, but I just don't have enough time to do everything considering my full-time job. So should I outsource the labor on this car? I don't know. Let me know what you think. So this is a bicycle. There's not much to say about it, so I'll keep it quick, but it's a little rundown. I'm taking in all 3 of the bicycles we have here to the shop on Wednesday. They'll get a nice tune-up and hopefully be running good as new. I did release a couple of videos working on bicycles, but I think I realized that I kind of like my bicycles like most people like their cars. I just want them to work, and so I'm taking it into a shop. That's about all there is to say on that. I wouldn't usually include skateboards in this video, but this is my Meepo Hurricane. It can go about 15 miles on a charge. It goes about 30 miles an hour, and it's got a flat tire, which is why it's in this video. These are pneumatics, so they do need to hold air just like a car tire, but this one wasn't, so another tube's in the mail. They'll be fixed soon. Otherwise, these things are electric, so there really isn't much to maintain. I realized I said I'd start every vehicle, and so I guess I'll start these things. Onto the next vehicle, which will be slightly larger, where the real problems begin, starting with the Loyale. And just to make things more interesting, we're going to start all of these without opening the garage doors and just let them idle. How long till I pass out? Come on, you didn't think I was being serious, did you? This thing, as you can hear, runs very well. Let me shut it off here. We'll move on to the next car, but we will come back to this thing and I'll talk about everything that it needs. This is my 1989 Goldwing, and it is a piece of crap. I paid about 3 times as much as I should have paid for this thing. Fortunately, it was only worth about 500 bucks in my opinion, so I only overpaid by 1,000, but still, way too much. I've put in a lot of work to get this thing where it is now, but I'm still not sure I'd keep it. Is what I said before I learned that it actually starts pretty easily. Let me demonstrate. And keep in mind, I mean pretty easily for a thrashed motorcycle from 1989. Gotta give the throttle a few cranks. But yeah, I wasn't aware up until like very recently this thing actually starts on the first try now. So, well, not the first try, but like the third try, which isn't bad. So I might keep working on this thing. The main things it needs is it has a massive exhaust leak somewhere, and it also just doesn't run quite right, so it probably needs the carbs synced. Another thing you might notice, this mirror's come off, so that needs to be put back on. It looks like someone already did a glue job on it. Some of the left switch gear doesn't work, and in fact the whole stereo system doesn't work. That I'm not really worried about. I think the switch gear that doesn't work is the hazards and the mute function on the stereo, which is all stuff I don't really care that much about. There is a panel missing from this side that's stored in the voluptuous trunk, which would be nice to have fixed, but I'm not sure I really need it. When I was working on the right switch gear, I broke the front radiator panel, and you might think, why are you messing with the radiator to work on the switch gear? Welcome to a Goldwing. It's missing the cassette cover, which again is something that I probably don't really care about. It's already broken. It's not like it's going to get wetter and more broken. So yeah, that's what this thing needs. The main issues are the exhaust leak and it running rough. So if I can solve that, maybe I'll start tackling the other stuff. But I don't know if I'll have a chance to do any of that stuff anytime soon. On to the next vehicle, which is my Tandem Bicycle. This thing was a freebie from my sister. They upgraded, didn't want to deal with this thing, so they just gave it to Leah and I. We do really enjoy riding it, but it doesn't stop or shift very well, and so it's also going in on Wednesday to get a tune-up. That's about all I've got to say to this. Moving on to the next thing, which is DRUMSET. Wait, no, that's not a vehicle. It doesn't even have wheels. No, it's my partner's bicycle. This thing's also going in on Wednesday. I think there's an issue with the fork. We did learn that these forks are not actually serviceable, and so I really hope there's not an issue with a fork, because it needed a replacement if that was the case, but we'll see on Wednesday. All right, that's all the drum sets, I mean bicycles that I have. On to the next vehicle, which is my 1984 Oldsmobile Delta 88 Royale. This is my grandpa's car. He's had it for just about as long as I've been alive. When I got it, I got the title. He bought this thing in 2001. This car means a lot to me. I've been keeping it running the best I can. This is another one of the contenders for getting the work outsourced on, because I haven't featured it all that much on this channel, and I really would like to be able to use it more as a daily driver. But I love this thing. It's nice and squishy and cush and comfy. Honestly, if it weren't for unreliability, this would be the car I would choose to take across the state on any given day if I didn't need to do any off-roading. If you really have watched all of my videos, you'll know that this thing really struggles to start if it's been sitting for more than about a day, but I did drive it today, so it should start right up. And even though it struggles, it does always start. It just takes quite a lot of cranking and pumping of the gas pedal. This is the most valuable car to me by far. My grandpa lost the battle with cancer under a year ago at this point, and I spent some of the last weeks of his life helping him put back together the top end on this thing. If you go way, way back in my channel's history, which I usually don't recommend, you can find a video of me in his garage putting it back together. It's not very complete and it's not very good, but you kind of can see what I was working with. So as far as things that this thing needs, it has an oil leak, I believe, from the valve cover. I put that thing on twice, and I think I still didn't get it quite right. It's got a coolant leak. I think that was a repair that my grandpa didn't do quite right. The power steering's a little bit finicky. The AC doesn't work, which I've already had diagnosed, needs a new compressor, and the wipers don't always put themselves away. While I'm out here, I'll show you what I mean by those wipers not putting themselves away. What you're looking at right now is the wipers in their put away position. They store themselves down here when they're not in use. And if I turn them on, you can see they pop up, and then they store themselves here while they are in use. Now if I turn them back off, they run one more time and then lower themselves back down into storage. They don't always do that last bit. They'll just keep running until you restart the car. So that is really inconvenient. With a big white land yacht in the room out of the way, let's move on to our final vehicle of the night. This is my 1985 Honda Shadow VT500C, or more commonly known as a Honda Shadow 500. I love this thing. It's my first bike. It's been perfect for me as a first bike. I've ridden it hundreds, if not thousands of miles already, but it does have some issues that have kept me from wanting to ride it recently. The main one being the brake. The cable is all cracked. It feels woody in the hand feel, and it just doesn't work very well. So that's one of the things that needs addressing. The other is the front fork. It has been leaking fluid and also just has a little bit of slop in it. I think it just needs to be rebuilt, both the front brake and the front fork. And due to those couple of things, I really haven't ridden it much this summer, but let's see if it starts. I don't think it'll have any problem starting right up, except for the battery. Yep, that's nothing. We're gonna have to go get a jumper, but I will start this one. There we go. Now it should start right up. Oh, not even any choke. This bike amazes me. I love this thing. It's probably one of the most reliable vehicles I have, but it just does need a little bit of work. And this is the third vehicle on the list of vehicles that I'm considering outsourcing the labor for. So let me know if of those three you'd like to see me outsource this one. And with that, we've gotten through all the vehicles. I was about to end the video here, but I forgot. I didn't actually mention what was wrong with the Loyale and what we're gonna be working on over the coming weeks. Let me turn to face my whiteboard. So the first issue we're gonna be tackling is the climate control controls, if that makes sense. If you put this thing on vent, it really struggles to switch to defrost or something, which is a huge problem in the winter for obvious reasons. Those controls are vacuum controlled, so I'm gonna get to learn how to do vacuum diagnostics, yay! And very related to that, this thing doesn't put out hot air. So I found a list of things to go through in order of difficulty to diagnose which issue it is. I'm thinking it's the thermostat being stuck open or having been disabled, because the car also doesn't really ever get up to temperature unless you're going like up a hill. There's a little bit of a squeak coming up from the front right corner. I think it might be the half shaft because I replaced that and re-greased it myself. And then there's also a little rattle coming from the rear when you like go over bumps and stuff. And so I had to figure out what that is. I think it might be a wheel bearing, but I haven't looked into it at all yet. And then those are the 4 simple issues. Then we really get into it. This thing, if you see my other videos, you know it absolutely dumps oil, like a quart every fill up. And so it needs a rear main seal. And so I'm gonna be pulling the engine out to do that, which will be my first ever engine out. I did a transmission out on my Acura RSX Type S, but this will be my first ever engine out. And I think it's gonna be a great first engine out because this engine is just so tiny. And while I have the engine out, I have 3 other things that I can consider doing. This thing, when it's cold out, it'll tick on startup, which I've done some research, and that appears to almost certainly be the hydraulic lifters, but that also could be fixed by the rear main seal. It's just dumping so much oil out of there. A little more oil pressure might help with that. So I don't know if I'll do that. I could also do the timing belt and the water pump, but this is a non-interference engine, meaning that if the timing belt breaks, it is not catastrophic. So I don't really need to do that, so maybe I won't. When I list it out like that, it doesn't sound so bad, but I do have to remember that I actually had to pull out the engine. So with all of that information, that is it. That's this video. That's all of my cars, where they're at, what work they need. And I'd like to remind you one more time to leave a comment down below if you think I should get the Oldsmobile serviced at an actual mechanics, the Shadow serviced at an actual mechanics, or the Volvo serviced at an actual mechanics, because one of those 3 cars I need to outsource. First, obviously, is the Crown Vic. I'm not gonna have 2 of my cars at the shop at once. I just don't really want to do that. But once the Crown Vic gets back, one of those 3 vehicles is going off to the shop. I do hope you enjoyed this little update. I just realized, like I said, I've been gone for 2 months from working in the shop, aside from that little shop tidy video. And so I wanted to give you an update on all the vehicles, where they're at, why I'm not using them generally. So yeah, if you want to see me get to work on these videos, or next week, actually, we're not even going to be out here. We're going to be camping again. I just can't keep myself out of the woods. Then hit the subscribe button if you want to see any of that. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed seeing where all my cars are at. I hope I'll see you again next week.